Welcome back to the Aquarius Podcast, where we talk about astrology with a focus on emotional intelligence. The Scorpio Full Moon doesn't ask politely. It exposes, it confronts, it forces awareness of what's been building underneath the surface. On May 1st, we're looking directly at our secrets being illuminated under the Scorpio Full Moon. Something is finishing today, not ending, but finishing. There's a difference. Endings are arbitrary. Completions, though, are earned. And what the Scorpio full moon is asking you is whether you're actually ready to receive what the past 6 months of psychological excavation has produced. Under the influence of the Scorpio full moon, the emotional atmosphere tends to move away from casual feelings into deeper psychological territory. With the moon in Scorpio opposing the sun, squared by Pluto and energized by Jupiter and Uranus, emotions are intense, revealing, and sometimes uncomfortable, but also potentially clarifying. So what does this actually look like on an emotional level? Here are several psychological patterns that tend to show up under a Scorpio full moon. The first is emotional exposure. Scorpio energy often breaks down emotional defenses. So you might suddenly become aware of feelings that you've been holding back or that you've been ignoring. The moon opposing the sun brings hidden or unconscious feelings to the surface, and this can feel vulnerable, but also very emotionally empowering because it encourages resilience and honesty. Second, emotional intensity as well as emotional amplification. The moon is trying to Jupiter. Jupiter tends to make everything bigger, and it makes our emotions bigger and stronger under a Scorpio full moon. So feelings are going to be enthusiastic, okay? So if you're feeling anger, if you're feeling passion, you're feeling conviction, they might seem more intense than usual because Jupiter doesn't create these emotions, but it just makes them larger, okay? As you know, Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. Thirdly, power sensitivity. The moon being square to Pluto is going to draw attention to our need for control, for influence, for emotional power in dynamics, in relationship dynamics specifically. You might notice subtle power plays. Who leads? Who follows? Who pulls back? Who initiates? Who sets the tone? Who pushes forward? This doesn't always cause conflict, but it makes what's been hidden clear. And that can be a little unnerving. Next, sudden emotional insight. With the moon closely opposed to Uranus, emotional realizations can come very quickly. As you know, Uranus is a ruler of Aquarius. It is speedy, okay? It's fast, it's brutal, and it can be a bit shocking. This is why Aquarius is often likened to lightning, while sister Leo is the sun. The sun has way more stability than lightning, right? So expect sudden insight. Expect what felt confusing before to feel clear. Conversations or events can trigger a fast change in perspective, new awareness, leading to that clear, now I see it. So there's going to be a lot of that, of sudden awareness. It's like suddenly you have a deeper understanding of what was driving the ship. So it's less about what happened, but why did it happen the way that it did, okay? Moving on to the fifth emotional experience you're going to have. You're going to experience a pull towards emotional transformation. Scorpio, in general, often brings a feeling that something inside is reaching a turning point. This is why Scorpio rules transformation. So the trine to the lunar nodes is going to strengthen the sense of change. You might feel driven to let go of old habits, to face a dark truth, or to understand something more deeply, not just at surface level, but the motivation behind your actions. Some of that may bring you more clarity. So altogether, you're going to notice heightened awareness, stronger reactions, and a push towards wanting and inviting psychological clarity. It might feel uncomfortable. I'm just going to be honest. The Scorpio full moon brings emotions to the surface that are usually kept under control because Scorpio energy works beneath the surface. Remember, Pluto is the darkest planet in our solar system, It's the furthest away from the sun. The sun is who gives all of us light. So when you live in the dark, you're used to your secrets being hidden. When we have a full moon in Scorpio, it highlights our deeper psychological layers where attachment, fear, power, vulnerability, all of that suddenly is salient. It's obvious. It's on the surface, it feels exposed. You'll see the emotional truth of situations more clearly. This can bring insight, wisdom, a fresh perspective, or even emotional courage. For some, this is going to open doors to finally have the uncomfortable conversation, uncomfortable but honest. Or for others, it may just nudge them to finally face something within that they've been avoiding. The emotional landscape of Scorpio is never easy. You have to earn your stripes, and earning your stripes requires developing a tolerance for emotional discomfort. The moon also being square Pluto in that aspect often intensifies power dynamics, which is a staple of Scorpio energy. Old resentments in relationships may come back up. Control issues, unresolved emotional patterns. All of those may become impossible to ignore in intimate relationships, okay? When Scorpio and Pluto themes come together, you just become more aware of what really drives your need for control, what's really behind your emotions, sometimes uncovering things that you were previously hiding from yourself without even realizing that's what you were doing. And that can be a bit embarrassing. This full moon is going to shine a spotlight on our relationships. The emotional reactions are going to become clearer. The key question is, what did you have to become to survive? And is that still who you want to be? The Pluto square separating means that the transformation has already been forced. Something has already broken down. You've already had to name something, see something, like a relationship, an identity, a belief system about how safe the world is. There's something that has already been lingering here. Now you can clearly see it for what that is. You can clearly see the process that created the confusion. The ascendant conjunction means that this isn't just an idea. It's something you're going to viscerally experience. You're going to feel it in your body. You're going to feel it in your face. It's going to be impossible to think about it with this kind of like removed approach that Scorpio generally takes. Being this removed from the sun, Scorpio is often very comfortable operating from the shadows. However, when the full moon is in Scorpio, you become the shadow. So you won't be able to have emotional distance from these emotions as you're processing them. When these emotions rise to the surface, the question is, what are they trying to show me? That's where the shadow work of Scorpio full moon begins. At its core, the Scorpio Taurus axis is about whether you trust life enough to let go of control. Taurus wants to build, Taurus wants to hold and secure. Scorpio, on the other end, wants to strip everything down to what's real. The tension between the part of you that holds on to money, holds on to people, holds on to identity, holds on to comfort, holds on to routine, and the part of you that knows that deep down, holding on is actually the problem. Like that's low key why you're stuck because you're not willing to let go of what no longer serves you. Taurus accumulates things to feel safe, and Scorpio strives to feel real, to feel true. So while Scorpio is busy trying to, strip things down, Taurus is busy trying to cover them up. Neither is wrong. But at a full moon on this axis, the question is whether what you're holding on to truly feeds your soul. Does it nourish you? Or are you just holding on to it because it feels familiar and therefore safe? The deepest Scorpio Taurus wound is this: I cannot afford to lose what I have, so I won't risk becoming who I could be. These two control out of fear. That's the sentence this full moon is finishing. What you held on to get through tough times versus what you want to build your life around now that this crisis has passed are two separate realities. There's a real growth potential here, but only if you're willing to honestly look at what survival has cost you. Survival comes at a cost. You know, the price of survival is trauma, it's adaptations, and those help us. They help us carry on, they push us through. And once we make it to the other side, we can be so traumatized from having made it through that we forget to take off the armor. And then we keep walking around with the armor, the heavy artillery, not realizing that it's holding us back. So the armor that you've built, is it still needed? Or is it just familiar? Where are your emotional boundaries? Are they healthy? Where have they been compromised? The trine to the lunar nodes here suggests that some of what comes up for you during this time is going to align with your destiny. So this moment is actually pushing you through deeper psychological growth so that you can become the person you need to become to live the dream life that you imagine. You have to bring yourself with you to your future. And the self that is wounded and still acting out of fears and past traumas is not the self that is abundant. Those are two separate people. The Scorpio full moon also has a close opposition to Uranus. So the emotional atmosphere here is going to feel a bit unpredictable, kind of like Aquarius, right? Reactions can be sudden, insight can be penetrating and quickly arriving. Situations that seem stable can get destabilized quickly. They can change in ways that you never saw coming. But those changes, when you're willing to allow them to come, when you're willing to accept life as it is, they help you see things from a new perspective. Moving on to shadow work for the Scorpio full moon to help you detox your soul, your spirit, your mind, heart, and body from, patterns that were needed to survive, but don't actually bring a lot of joy. Okay? We want joy. We don't want burdens that we don't need to carry. All right? So the first piece of shadow work is going to be around this identity of being the survivor. This is a huge theme of every Scorpio client I've ever had. Sun, moon, or rising, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. If you have Scorpio in any of these placements, I know that you know what I'm talking about. Who you decided you had to be to get through something really tough that you went through, and how that identity has quietly become a cage is what you're being called to examine. Am I still acting as a version of myself built for a crisis that is over? That's the question. Are you still in the crisis, or was the crisis back there? Scorpio rules psychological armor. This full moon is asking you to examine whether your protection is truly a protection or if it's a prison. Shadow work number 2, the control wound. Pluto square separating means that control has already been confronted. Something was taken, something shifted, something dismantled without your permission. The shadow period here is the belief that if you manage everything tightly enough, you can prevent yourself from losing things. And that's a lie because you don't control the universe. The invitation here is to find where that belief still operates beneath your conscious awareness. Where is it inside of your body, in your relationships, in the way you deal with money, in the way you deal with intimacy in your marriage, in your behavior? How much do you allow yourself to need people? Those spaces is where your control wound are going to show up the most. Moving on to shadow work number 3, I want you to ask yourself, who am I still punishing for something they may not even know they did? Okay? This one is targeting resentment. Scorpio loves to hold resentment as a power play. In their mind, the more resentful person is the more powerful person. Scorpio's most defended shadow is resentment. And they reframe it as discernment, protection, strength. Scorpio loves posturing with their wounds as proof of their survival. The full moon is going to highlight the difference between having a genuine boundary and having a wound that has turned into a weaponized worldview. Shadow work number 4. Ask yourself, are you protecting yourself or are you sabotaging your relationships? Intimacy avoidance is a huge issue for Scorpio energy. And what's funny is the Scorpio mind tricks, the Scorpio dominant person with this energy into believing that intimacy avoidance is actually like a high quality standard of life. Us having the descendant being in opposition to this moon is going to bring this directly into our relationships. The shadow dynamic here is the part of you that truly wants deep connection, but has created a set of criteria, conscious or unconscious, that ensures that nobody ever truly fully qualifies for the job. Because high standards become a way to stay emotionally unreachable, which keeps Scorpio isolated and emotionally unfulfilled. So in this case, what looked like a strength now turns into a weakness because life is more enjoyable when we are in community with one another. Moving on to the last shadow work, number 5, the unlived life. Jupiter trining from the expensive side of this chart highlights the shadow of unlived potential. Your question is, have you been building a life that looks secure but feels unsettling or even traumatic? Do you have dreams that you've put off, not because they were wrong, but because chasing them required a level of vulnerability that felt too expensive for you? The Taurus axis beneath is asking you, what is the price that you're paying for resisting your full potential? This Scorpio full moon is about the trade you made between keeping safe and feeling alive, and whether you're still paying a price that you never consciously agreed to. It's kind of like you have this set up on auto pay and you forgot about it and it's still going and it's actually not benefiting you anymore, but you have not realized it yet. So the universe is asking you to do the shadow work so that you can ask yourself if this quality of life that you have is sufficient for you. Does he make your heart full? Does he make you feel connected to other people, to new friendship, to new social connections, to people who are aligned with your values? That's the shadow work. It's not dramatic. It's not performative. It's just honest. It's just honest. When emotional truth comes to light and we're willing to welcome it, it opens the door to transformation. How ready are you to transform? If you say you're ready, then you have to face the truth that you find when you ask yourself these questions. Now, on to some horoscope prompts for all rising signs. The tone here is concise and intentional. It's direct, and I'm aiming it at emotional release and emotional awareness in the area of your life that is going to be activated under this full moon. For Aries rising, this is going to activate your marriage, the shared resources in your marriage, the psychological patterns in your marriage, as well as your propensity towards intimacy. It's time to let go of control, Aries, okay? Face the deeper emotional truths around trust, around your need for control and power, and around, sharing resources with somebody else, all right? Taurus rising, this falls for you in the 7th house, the house of relationships, partnerships, and business agreements. Taurus rising, it's time to confront the truth in your relationship, okay? Stop avoiding the conversation that needs to happen. Gemini rising, for you, this falls in the 6th house, the house of work-life balance, daily systems. Gemini rising, it's time to clean up the patterns that are draining your energy. You have to change some habits that are quietly undermining your brilliance. Cancer rising, for you, this falls in the 5th house. This is a house of creativity, pleasure, romance, and self-expression. Cancer rising, stop holding back your emotional truth. Express what you actually feel and want. Leo rising, for you, this falls in the 4th house. The 4th house is the house of our emotional roots connected to our mother, our family, as well as our home life. Leo rising, it's time for you to face what's unresolved at home. The issues from home are spilling into all of your other relationships because the emotional patterns from the past need to be acknowledged in order for them to be transcended. Okay? Virgo rising. This falls for you in the third house. This is the house of communication, mindset, as well as data analysis. Virgo rising, I need you to say what needs to be said. Stop filtering the truth to keep the peace. Okay? Libra rising, for you, this falls in the second house, which is the house of our self worth, money, as well as our valuables. Libra rising, stop compromising your value. Make decisions that reflect your real worth. Okay? Scorpio rising, for you, this falls in the first house, which is the house of our identity, our personal direction in life, and our self definition. Scorpio rising, it's time to step into your power. Release the version of you that you've outgrown. All right? Sagittarius rising, for you, this falls in the 12th house. This is the house of karma, the house of releases, of endings, of subconscious patterns. Sagittarius rising, let go of the past. The past is not the present. The past is not the future. What's hidden from the past or unresolved is ready to be released. Capricorn rising, for you, this falls in the 11th house. This is the house of long-term goals, of friendship, of community. Capricorn rising, you need to reassess some alliances. Not everyone in your circle belongs in your future. Aquarius rising, for you, this falls in the 10th house, which is the house of our public image, our reputation, as well as our career. Aquarius rising, it's time to confront the truth about your professional path. Stop pursuing goals that no longer reflect who you are. Pisces rising, for you, this falls in the 9th house. The 9th house is our worldview. It's about truth. It's about our belief system and spirituality. Pisces rising, I want you to challenge your assumptions. Let outdated belief systems fall away so a deeper truth can emerge within. Now, on to some do's and don'ts of the Scorpio full moon. The first thing you want to do is let yourself be seen in whatever state you're actually in. I'm sure every Scorpio listening to this right now is cringing, okay? The ascendant conjunction here has already removed most of your cover. Stop spending energy managing the presentation and put that energy towards the truth beneath the presentation. The people worth keeping can handle your actual face, and the ones that aren't worth keeping will not. Sit with the last 6 months, reflect on what you've learned over the last 6 months before you decide what it means. The Pluto square has done its work. You don't have to assign a narrative to it today. You just have to acknowledge that something has changed. Okay? You have to acknowledge that it came to you at a price. You have to acknowledge what that price was. Quietly, stubbornly, you survived it, and you deserve to celebrate yourself for that. Give yourself time to figure out what comes next. Okay? What you don't want to do under the Scorpio full moon is weaponize your intensity. This full moon hands Scorpio a blade in the form of energy, and the temptation is going to be to use it on someone else when the real work of Scorpio is within. If you feel the urge to expose someone, confront someone, dismantle something external, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, pause long enough to ask yourself whether you're projecting. Projection is so common, and very few people are even aware of what it is. When you're a water sign, projection is a way of life, especially if you have it at the moon placement. Oftentimes, water signs struggle to see their darkness because it's too dark, it's too deep. I believe that psychologically, many of them are afraid of it. When you think about it, it kind of aligns with what we know here in the universe. The thing with the sea, you may or may not know this, but NASA, before they started studying the cosmos, they started with the sea. Pretty quickly, NASA lost interest in studying the sea because no one truly knows how deep the sea is, how deep the darkness goes. They switched gears and decided to look up instead of looking below. And that's why now we have all this data, with the cosmos, but we don't have similar data about the sea because the darkness there is too deep, too vast, too wide. So water signs naturally carry with them a lot of shadow that overwhelms them, in my opinion. And the quickest way to deal with that for them is to reject it, is to release it, is to pretend it's not there and then to say it belongs to other people. So if you find yourself projecting what belongs to you instead of dismantling what's within you, then you've gone off course. Your job is to weaponize your intensity towards yourself, okay? If you must weaponize the intensity, direct it at yourself, but I don't recommend weaponizing it. Secondly, a breakthrough is not emotional flooding. The moon being in conjunction with the ascendant at exact opposition is a lot of water moving at once. So you're going to be feeling everything. Feeling everything is not the same as understanding everything, being aware of everything, and integrating everything into wisdom. The other two, they take a lot more work and they take a lot more emotional vulnerability. What's just felt isn't resolution, it's unresolved material. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you know what you're feeling, how deep you're feeling it, what it means for your life now and tomorrow. To go deeper, I recommend reading literature or reading books about polyvagal theory, attachment theory, somatic therapy approaches, as well as trauma-informed therapy. Scorpio is code word for trauma because that's where the soul breaks. So we die to the physical realm to awaken to the spiritual energetic realm. Integration during this full moon isn't about fixing problems or solving everything. It's about accepting the truth you found, and letting it guide your next step. It means honestly living with what you now understand. In your body, what do you now understand about where your body holds your trauma, where your body holds your pain? Chronic holding patterns in the jaw, in the chest, in the gut is going to reveal itself. And it's going to take on another context. And the context is really the beginning of the release. I want you to examine how your trauma shows up in your relationship. Someone says the true thing. I hope you find the courage in your relationships to say the true thing instead of the strategic thing. And don't do it to wound. Don't do it to war. Don't do it to win an argument. Because the full moon is conjunct the ascendant, the cost of continuing to conceal your darkness has made the cost of visibility very high. So you won't be able to get away with pretending to not be who you are, because everybody else can see through you now. Integration here looks like a single honest sentence that permanently changes the temperature of that relationship. In identity, the survival self and the new self that's coming out of the last 6 months are going to be competing. You're being asked to stop defending who you had to be to survive and quietly become curious about who you are underneath that survival. It's not a dramatic change. It's just a small, lasting permission to say, I don't have to keep being this person. I don't have to keep being this way. I don't have to keep living this way. This full moon is inviting you to look at your shadows, the resentment, the control issues, the power plays, the way you avoid intimacy. We're not asking you to make it disappear. We're asking you to observe it, to see that it's there. But it becomes visible as a mechanism rather than just a truth, because this full moon is going to show you how it shows up in your day-to-day, in your intimate relationships. The gap between this is who I am and this is what I learned to do is what integration is about. You're supposed to be able to bring them both together and reduce that gap. Creating a smaller gap is going to make an enormous difference in your relationships, because relationships are necessary for humans. We are social beings. We get a lot of our pleasure from being in community. And when we approach relationships from a place of trauma with our traumatized selves, we already come to them with a deficit. We're not asking for a new history. We're asking for awareness about who we had to become because of our history. If you're doing this right, what you should expect is catharsis, okay? Emotional confrontation, not with others, but with yourself, and dramatic declarations about who you want to be moving forward. These are Scorpio's dramatic ways of transforming all of us. They can be useful sometimes, but they're not the same as integration. True integration during this full moon is going to be quieter than expected. It's when you finally stop fighting reality and you start working with it. Integration here looks like finally putting down something heavy and noticing with a little bit of twinkle of surprise in your eyes that your hands work and your hands still work and you can actually choose to put something down and move on. So in a way, this Scorpio full moon is about reclaiming your power to choose. Here's an emotional regulation tool that you can use that works really well for Scorpio energy. I call it the Surface, Release, Ground, and Integrate tool. 4 steps, okay? Surface the hidden emotions is step 1. With the moon opposing the sun and squaring Pluto, buried feelings are going to come up. They're going to naturally rise to the surface. Take 5 to 10 minutes in a quiet place. Close your eyes and ask yourself, what truth am I avoiding about my power, the way I do connections, the way I do attachment, the way I do relationships, or my emotional boundaries? And then let whatever comes up come up. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's control, maybe it's resentment, maybe it's shame. Let whatever it is rise without judgment. This is really the moon's way of allowing you to become more aware and to also release emotions. You know, it's okay if they come out as tears. The main goal is to encourage release. Once you become aware of that truth, or perhaps multiple truths, you can write them as a means of releasing them. The Scorpio full moon requires honesty, okay? Sagittarius comes after Scorpio, and Sagittarius rules over truth. We cannot get to truth without honesty. Scorpio is about self-honesty. So journal the emotions that surface. Describe them fully. What triggered those emotions for you? How do they show up in your relationship? How do they show up at work? How do they control how you see yourself? Don't just write, I feel angry. Explore why and where is it rooted? And what is it connected to when it comes to your trauma? The trine to Jupiter here supports clarity. Sagittarius, who's ruled by Jupiter, wants to give you wisdom for your pain. It wants to give you an expanded insight into this darkness, but that only comes if you're willing to commit to the process. All right? So we did the surface. We did the releasing. Now we're going to ground. Somatic grounding is very important for water signs because they often feel like they're floating with their emotions. With the contra parallel to Uranus, there are also going to be sudden emotional jolts. So move your body to anchor your energy. Press your feet on the floor. Take slow breaths. You know, shake out tension in your body for 2 to 3 minutes. For 2 to 3 minutes, let your body carry the intensity rather than allowing your mind to drown with it. If you're able to physically exercise, the full moon in Scorpio is a wonderful time to do that because Scorpio is co-ruled by Mars, the planet of action. Action and aggression, people that are dominated by active energy, like Scorpio and Aries, both ruled by Mars, they need to be moving their bodies. So if you're able to physically exercise, if you have Scorpio or Aries in your big 6, you can take advantage of that. I promise you, you'll feel better because that energy to war is in you. And when you don't address it or you deny it, you end up warring in the wrong places. And sometimes it hurts you and your connections. But if you go to the gym and instead of destroying your marriage, you actually box a bag for 30 minutes, you're still getting that energy out, but you're doing so in a way that doesn't harm you or anyone else. And that's really the point. Okay? So the last step is integration. And we integrate with awareness. So when you're done writing what you released on that piece of paper, when you're done journaling, read back what you wrote. Rereading what you wrote helps you identify patterns, new truths, new realizations. The trine to the North Node again reminds you that this is part of a bigger plan. This is you being brought to the end of a very heavy karmic cycle. And you did that. You did your big one on this karmic cycle. So integration here isn't resolution. It's just coexistence. It's acknowledging what is true without trying to immediately fix it. You don't need to fix anything. You just need to let it be and recognize how it's showing up for you. Here's a short affirmation that all zodiac signs can use for the Scorpio full moon. I see the truth within me. I release what no longer serves me. I step forward with awareness and renewed power. Scorpio rules power in astrology. The power of Scorpio is within. It's about their will to survive. The person, the spirit that is birthed from that survival. So here's what I want to leave you with. This full moon is not asking you to perform transformation. This is not theater, okay? It's not asking you to post about it. It's not asking you to narrate it, to make it eligible to anyone else's consciousness. It's just asking you to actually do it. Actually integrate quietly, honestly, in the places where nobody's watching. The Scorpio Taurus axis beneath all of this is about one thing: whether you trust life enough to stop controlling it, whether what you've been gripping, whether it's your identity, your story, the version of you that you built to survive something, whether that is actually serving you, or whether it has become the thing that's standing in the way of your life truly being great and truly being yours. Because when you're trapped in the past, you're abandoning your present. And you already know the answer. You've known it for a while. This full moon is just the moment that the cosmos finally agrees with what your body has been telling you. So don't waste this energy on performing. Don't waste it on drama. Don't waste it on like fake psychology talk. Just sit with it. Sit with what you now know to be true and let that truth change one small thing about you. That's enough. Honestly, that's actually everything. Transformation requires action. If this episode moves something in you, please feel free to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment. It takes 30 seconds and it means this work reached the people that it's meant to reach. I'll see you on the next one, which is going to be May 16th, when we're having a new moon in Taurus. Happy Scorpio full moon. You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius Podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.